It's just the extra expenditures that we're looking at that have us rather crippled. Otherwise, I think we'd be fine, we'd have a fine budget.
So did the state give us 1 mil for economic development? Or they allowed you to use 1 mil for economic development?
In the beginning, they gave it. It got kind of washed into everything else. We switched it years ago before my time to being a PILT expenditure. But the legislature said, no, you can spend at first up to 2 mils, and now there's no cap. You could spend 10 mils on economic development if you want. We changed it to mils to make it more transparent for the public. There's very few limits that the legislature places on where we can spend our floating mills. If the citizens vote 5 mils for weed and mils for mosquito, those mills are dedicated to weed and mosquito, period. We don't, beyond that, I can't think of any other, are there any limitations that you can think of that are not voter approved? That are mandated by the state?
No grants, for a
Yeah,
specific purpose. As far as
Mills
tax
wise?
revenue, it's mills money. If they're non-voted,
it's kinda up to us.
based on just maybe special districts or tax increment districts, but we don't have those. So we're pretty simple.
Right? Yeah, so no, they don't dictate how many we
So
can.
voted mills are dedicated for the term of the mill levy, right?
Correct. So the weed mill, for example, those 5, Pam got it passed in perpetuity. Those will always be out there.
The fire mills are permanent as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
What's that?
The fire mills for the rural fire district. And I
And
believe,
mosquito too?
Yes.
and I believe the last couple of years, the school mill levies have been permanent.
That's right. That was a big deal that those
Mhm.
passed, yeah. I think the only short term is the hospital mill
And it's
levy.
expired, but they do have 1 permit, do they not?
They do not.
Mhm.
They've
I
always
don't
been
think
just
so.
3 years, yeah.
I don't think they have a permanent one.
I thought that they had one or 2 mills that was permanent. This last 3 mills, the last one that's expired now, was a 3-year one, but I thought that they had a permanent one established also.
They have 2 point some, off the top of my head, 2.3,
As a district,
2.4 for the district, and that went with the formation of the district.
And that's permanent,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, though that's not a,
That's not a voted.
right, right.
So right now, if the sheriff's department was to go for a mill levy, it would replace the hospital mill levy, temporary hospital mill.
If that's how they wrote it and it was approved. If they said a term,
If-
they could ask for in perpetuity one too.
But I mean,
Depends on how they write it.
but if you passed it now, it
Yes.
wouldn't lead to an increase in taxes because it would be the same value as what the hospital is right now.
Because of the timing.
If they chose to do it that way. The other thing is the hospital could also go out for mill levy
Mhm.
at the same time, which I don't think they're doing, I haven't heard anything. You would know more on that.
They're not proposing it right now.
Okay, so they couldn't really write it to be a replacement of the hospital mill levy. They could voice that if they wanted to, but it's not something you put on the ballot. But if they
Yeah.
did the same thing, yeah, that's how you could communicate. When somebody, a department, weed is a good example. Weed is required by law. Okay, you asked this earlier, does the legislature say we have to have a certain number of mills for something? Yes. For weed, the law says you have to fund your weed department by either 1.6 mills or $100,000. And you can choose which either is less. We chose to go with the 1.6 mils. When Pam got her 5 mils passed, the commission back then took the 1.6 mils and replaced it with the voted 5. That was deemed to be illegal. You can't take away those mills and replace it with the voted mills. So weed actually operates on 6.6 mills, 5 voted by the citizens, 1.6 by law. So if the hospital, for example, hospital district has that 2 mills, if they got another mill levy, or when they did get that 3-year mill levy, we did not remove those 2 mills. We added the voted
Just
mill
adding on
levy
to be a whole
to
thing.
them,
Okay.
yeah. And that's how you do it, that's the honorable way to do it. Honorable and legal, both.
So when the weed did that, where did those first mills, were they part of the floating mills, or they were legislative mills?
The 1.6?
Yeah,
Legislative mills, actually. I don't remember the statute, I might have it marked here, but there's a statute that says how many mills that you will give to your weed department. And just because Pam went out for that mill levy, it was deemed to be improper to take those legislative required mills and replace them. Those had to stay in the weed department, I don't have it here, and added to the 5. Do you have it off the top of your head?
Yeah, I was gonna bring down the list, but,
There's a section on weed in here, I just don't know what it is off the top of my head. I don't know,
okay.
but it's in there, I can find it from, I can ask Scott, he's probably got it off the top of his head.
That's all the questions I have.
All right. Brandon, any questions you have on the whole process, how we're supposed to work, how you guys are supposed to work with us, anything? All right. The fact that we weren't able to work with you guys there at the end, I'm sorry. It wasn't intentional, but it also was dictated by law that we get the budget done. And as much as we tried to work with you guys, there's just some things at the last hour that we had to get done so that Debbie could have the instruction on how to get the paperwork done so that we had it for the vote. It's not one of those things where it takes her a lot of time. It's complicated stuff. And as much as we tried to work with you guys and did, I think, pretty darn well, at the end of it, sometimes it just gets hairy and we've got to get some stuff done. Nothing was a surprise. It had all been a matter of discussion before. It's just we needed to commit to decisions.
And I understand that. I think that you talk about, all this communication and stuff, and when something comes up and something that you don't expect whatsoever, and it's said in a meeting and it's not brought to us or anything, is that you're gonna pay $30,000, I think it goes both ways.
And
I
that
think
came
that
as an
really-
agreement from you guys, so I hear what you're saying, but that wasn't a surprise.
But like what the sheriff has said before, is that was an agreement from him, that was a previous sheriff. And I'm not saying that we're not against paying that whatsoever, I think that it's like, boom, here's 30,000. Because, and another thing I'd like to know is that are we the only ones that pay for maintenance?
No, you're not.
So I could see where the nurse has it taken out of her budget, Corey's office, every office in this facility, the solid waste, I mean, I hear he's doing all this work up there, which kinda leads me to, are we the only ones paying, or what?
You're paying because there's so much. Over 50% of their time is spent in the sheriff's office.
And I
That's
understand that, and I
huge.
appreciate
When
it.
the other departments have him come in and change out a fan, it's hardly comparable. It was an agreement brought to us in partnership with your department. Granted, it was a predecessor, but the promises of a predecessor stand for the department. It stands with that office, not with the individual. So it was brought to us by your department, by a predecessor of your sheriff, of our sheriff. And, yeah, comparing the changing of a fan with the reconstruction, the reflooring, the maintaining the showers, with all the things that we just heard today, there's a vast difference.
Well,
Absolutely vast
I
difference.
would not deny that whatsoever, but I think that whether it's in, you know, an hour there or an hour here, you know, I mean, we're getting billed from planning, and, you know, when do we start billing out our services to people that we provide services to is what I'm questioning, you know?
And the planning issue is also different. Yeah, 911 is under the sheriff's purview, but it's state funds. And there are requirements for you guys to have certain things that you don't have the ability to do in your office. If you did and you want to train somebody for that, that's certainly something that we can actually put Nicole to doing other work. But right now, she's essentially doing work for the sheriff's office.
And we have that worked
So-
out, but
and I
also in
appreciate
calling
that.
counties outside of our county is they're like, no, we don't bill our sheriff's office for 911 mapping information. The commissioners are required to have planning no matter what, which that was our comment, our conversation and our comment is that who all uses planning? A lot of people. If there was no sheriff's office, no public safety existed, would you still have to have planning? And the answer was yes.
Right, but we're not talking planning, we're talking GIS. She's the GIS coordinator, and that was put in place, again, your predecessor, but it was an agreement with the previous sheriff, coordinated by Dave Klaus, who's been working a lot with
And
you guys. So it was put into place by you guys.
And we got it worked out. My issue with that was that it was $18,000, right? And it was for 18 months. $1,000 a month, I felt was absolutely ridiculous. I called outside of this office, the companies that do that, and it was $5,000 a year. We got that part worked out. There's actually an invoice going over now, where it's a way lesser amount. But I think that even though it's state money, you can't just say it's $1,000 a month when I can go get the same business for $5,000.
I think it's great that you guys renegotiated and relooked at those numbers, I think that was responsible. But the interim of no communication wasn't. So now that you've worked it out, kudos to both of you. Thank you, you did a huge service to the county. But our structure is perhaps different than some others. If other counties have the GIS coordinator in the sheriff's office, fine.
They don't.
Or if they contract with a private company, that's fine too. You've worked it out with Nicole this year, that's fine. Everybody has a different way of doing things, but it wasn't planning that was doing that, it was the GIS coordinator that was actually put into place by a previous sheriff. And Nicole took that on at her request, at the previous sheriff's request with Dave Klaus.
Yeah, and then-
So if you guys wanted to change that, that's fine, but again, I would request communication so that everybody's in a full understanding and that you're still getting those services taken care of.
I don't think it was the fact of wanting to change it, it was the fact of why are we getting billed so much when you get a bill like that, and it doesn't have anything written on it, it's $18,000, and it just says GIS mapping. I think that it's our responsibility to question it, and you know, it's like you guys getting a bill and it's just $18,000 to some business. Well, what happened? You get a breakdown of it, and when we question that and we start calling outside of what it's going to cost to do business elsewhere, and you get a $5,000 bill for a whole year, I think that, you know, it's responsible to raise some questions. That's worked out, but what, during those conversations that we called, the GIS mapping is in the planning departments in these other counties. It's not to the sheriff's office. Nothing gets billed to the sheriff's office whatsoever, is what I'm being told. From the planning departments, not the sheriff's office, from the planning departments. The planning and GIS, the way I understood it, and maybe I'm wrong, is one. It's the same thing. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't wanna hold me to that, but this is what my conversations of trying to figure it all out. So I mean, that was our question, you know, it's just, it seems that, you know, we keep getting billed. At what point do we start billing for our services to other entities in this county as well?
And I guess from your perspective, that's a fair question. From mine, it isn't, because you're not really being billed. I mean, if you want, what we could do is go back to the old ways where you guys hire your own maintenance person.
Yeah, and I'm
And you're
not
gonna be
saying we
spending
wanna
a
do
lot
that.
more money. So sharing, like we're doing right now, actually saves you guys a lot of money. And I think is smart for us to share wherever we can. So if we can continue that, I think it's better for everybody. But we need to have a focus on trying to make those work for the best of everybody. But it can't just be the general fund
And
given,
and I
because we
get
just
that.
don't have anything left. You can't squeeze blood out of a turnip. And that's what we're looking at this year.
I think that the main concern of the maintenance, the 30,000, the main concern and the issue is that we never got to even sit down and discuss it. It was just said, this is gonna happen, and calling Debbie, it's just, yeah, she's just gonna take it out where it happens instead of us, where she can, instead of us going back. Maybe there's places that we could cut. I mean, look, you know, just sitting down, we had 4,500 that we didn't spend in our budget last year on our maintenance. I mean, there's 4,500 right there. I think that, to me, and I'm going to attend this budget class, I've yet to attend one. I mean, I'm obviously learning as I go, and I've probably, you know, done some things that I don't understand, or, you know, taken things in differently, or understood them differently, but it seems to me that sheriff's office is in a huge hole here, especially with our cash reserves. And if I understand it right, we have $200,000 to operate on in cash until, was it November when the taxes come in? The first tax payment? So that means with that, we're deputies alone, I mean, you're about, was it 80,000 a month in wages,
No,
or
the whole
90?
public, yeah, the whole public safety fund between deputies, dispatch, and detention, coroner. I think it's about 80.
So 80, you know, and then you do the math, we're gonna be in the hole before we start, and then we're gonna have to try to make up all that revenue. I don't think we're ever gonna get out of it, and if we're just gonna pull 30,000 out here, the way I'm understanding it now is like, hey, we need to watch this, and I need to figure out where we can spend and where we can't, and where we obviously need to make some serious cuts somewhere, whether we have to cut services or something. I mean, we have to do something different in order to get our cash reserves up to, is it 33% is,
The
was it
maximum.
600 and, is it almost 700,000, 680,000, 500,000, something like that? We probably can't be too far off,
Yeah, third of your expenditures, basically,
so probably close to 7,
yeah.
I would think, roughly, doing some rough math, but.
We
We got a long
sympathize.
ways to go, and it seems like if we just keep taking money out of that, we're gonna be in the hole, it's never gonna be fixed. I mean, not in my life, I mean, not in my career, the lifetime of my career that's left, definitely not gonna be, if we only go up 2 or 3% a year. So, that's all I was asking. We'll get together, we'll try to figure something out, I just obviously don't wanna touch what we have there, so.
Yeah, we can sympathize, because the general fund's going into next year with nothing. So, we're with you, as far as that goes, everybody's gonna hurt this year. But we did give you a gift the last 2 years, by not taking the 30. So, guess it all evens out in the wash. Hey, Mike,
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Commission, here's a
thank you.
draft, threw it together, take a look at this. It says here pursuant to the invitation for bid document issued July 24th by the Board of County Commissioners for procurement of a new ambulance for the county, McConkey, coordinator for DES, hereby request authority of the Board of County Commissioners, appoint Cyrus Grant, EMT paramedic, employee Broward Health Secretary, county procurement representative, dealing with Brant Northwest Incorporated, dealing during and after the pre-bid and problem resolution meetings as defined below. And then those meetings, that came out of our definition of those two meetings out of our invitation, requesting approval.
Looks good to me, this'll work.
That's good to me.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if you want to sign that, pass it on. Okay. Get out of your hair.
Thanks for being around, Dave.
Thank you, Commissioners. Let's get this.
Thank you.
Anything else, any other comments? Or? That will be adjourned at 12:23, I guess.